The gaming industry, in my opinion, has become an absolute joke. Every single time I see news about either executives from the industry directly or how a game is performing, it really goes to show that the industry only wants to be supported by just a few, dare I say, even whales that they're looking at directly to continually pump out more money from them. We see this not only in the games right now costing $80 and moving to $90, maybe even $100 at any time soon, but also in the hardware itself, where we saw price increases for the Xbox Series S and S. We're seeing rumors going around that PlayStation may in fact try to increase the cost of their consoles, even though the PS5 Pro is already $700, $800 with the disk drive and the stand, by the way. And then on top of that, GPU manufacturing and pricing being a complete show consistently, while GPUs are getting nothing but paper launches and are being completely unavailable at MSRP, while the actual stores themselves are marking them up online, or you have to go and get these items scalped. So, if the industry only wants to make money from like 2% of the actual player base, go right ahead and collapse, I say. But the thing is, it's going to go ahead and always get worse. Because I don't just want to talk about the industry specifically, I want to talk about a couple of things that happened over the weekend. And these two things do in fact coincide together. One of these things is from Shuhei Yoshida, the former executive of PlayStation. And the other thing is Doom the Dark Ages and its player counts on Steam. And no, I'm not kidding, I promise there will be a connection. But let's see what Shuhei said over the weekend, because when you hear it, it's going to be kind of concerning what he says. Hazardor Gaming on Twitter posted this. Former PlayStation executive Shuhei Yoshida says $70 or even $80 games are a steal, quote unquote. As long as people choose carefully how they spend their money, they should not be complaining. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of lost my mind when I read that tweet. I thought Hazardor was, in fact, compromised. There's no way in hell somebody would even have the audacity or the gumption or the testicular fortitude to say something so incredibly stupid in this economy at this day and age, saying $80 games is a steal. This reminds me of when Adam Sessler said Skyrim should have been $100 because the amount of hours you put into that game should equate to the amount of money you should spend for it. No, he is, in fact, that. But let's go ahead and see what Shuhei actually said, though, because clearly, maybe Hazardor wrote it wrong. Maybe I read it wrong. It can't be true, right? In the quote directly from Games Radar, Shuhei said this: "I don't believe that every game has to be priced the same." Yoshida continues, "Each game has different value it provides or the size of the budget. I totally believe it's up to the publisher or developer's self-publishing decision to price their product to the value that they believe they are bringing in." Yoshida continues by saying this: "In terms of actual price of $70 or $80 for really great games, I think it will be a steal in terms of the amount of entertainment that the top quality games bring to people compared to other forms of entertainment. As long as people choose carefully how they spend their money," he continues, "I don't think they should be complaining." Sorry, Shuhei. No, I'm going to complain regardless, because the thing is this. What we're looking at is what the publisher and developer feel that they think they should charge. And do you not clearly think at some point these publishers and developers are going to try and take advantage of you as a customer? Clearly, they already have. And the thing is, it's going to continue over and over again. As we see simps for Mario Kart World turn around and be like, well, it's Nintendo, I'm going to give them $80 for it. Or, oh, it's GTA, I'll pay $100 for it. Those games are few and far between in the space. The problem is that other publishers and developers aren't taking things from a perspective of the actual consumer. They're looking at it from the actual perspective of their own pocketbooks. And when they see that other game companies and other publishers are putting out $80 games because of quality, they're going to think to themselves, our game is worth that too. We've got the ego, we've got the hubris, we could put our games out for $80 and it'll sell, right? Nope, that's not how that works. We can't sit here and look at an actual market and have everything dictated by one or two people putting their games out simply because they have a larger following of base to be able to go ahead and bear that market price. Those games shouldn't be costing that much in the first place, because we are still at a point in the actual gaming space where we still have microtransactions, battle passes, 2-day early access for an extra $20 for some in particular weird fucking reason. We'll talk about that too as well, by the way. Games come out broken, buggy, need day one patches, constant updates, or they're completely incomplete with modes missing, and you want to charge me more money? We've seen the cost of price of games go up from 60 to 70, and literally game quality has gone down since that inception. We also saw the same thing happen between 50 and 60. The thing is, these publishers and developers, Shuhei, are looking at it from the perspective of not how much quality we bring into the market, but they're looking at it in terms of how much money can we pull from that other customer. And that's exactly what's going to be happening. The problem is that people are getting priced out of the market specifically, and it's literally blowing up in game publishers' faces. Because when you're talking about what a game is a steal, it's literally going ahead and backfiring in front of your face at the fact that games that are $50 right now are selling far more, doing far better, and have higher player counts consecutively, even at being at a lower price point directly. Don't believe me? Clair Obscur Expedition 33 had 145,000 peak concurrent player count throughout its entire lifetime online. Right now, there's 77,000 people playing that game. I'm currently in the middle of Act 2. A $50 JRPG, or shall I say a JRPG, is completely demolishing and destroying everything in the market. It has taken over the entire communication space of video game conversation simply because they dared to do something different in the actual space. And it's $50. So when we're looking at a game that is a steal and a customer being more concerned with their money, what are they going to do? Am I going to spend $80 for a 12-hour experience that's broken, buggy at launch? Or am I going to spend $50, get 100 plus hours out of my game time, have a much better experience overall, and play the potential game of the year? You see why that doesn't work? You see why that doesn't make any sense? Because game titles that are coming around, and either indie titles as well, are completely knocking you guys out of the park in every single facet. You want to charge more money for customers, yet at the same time, you're not providing anything back in return for charging more money. And I think a bigger reason why Expedition 33 is doing so well is because it seems like that game was in fact made by people who play video games. You see, according to Games Radar as well, it turns out that the Clair Obscur Expedition 33 director is more than just a fan of Devil May Cry. His own YouTube channel is nothing but impressive DMC5 challenge runs, which of course makes a whole lot of sense. So now we have directors of video games actually play video games and do no hit runs, triple S rank style Devil May Cry runs on their own YouTube channel. It's almost like the people that play video games know more about making video games and pricing video games. The problem with the current industry right now is that too many suits are in the kitchen and they have no idea what makes a good game in the first place. We see horrible decisions being made. We see watering everything down, trying to hit the most amount of masses, and at the same time make everything completely bland, boring, and rote, and charge them more money for it simply because, oh, we got to hit our quarterly financials, put the game out now, patch it later, charge more money, then fire everybody at the end. Everybody sees these things happen all the time in the industry. Yet for some reason, this really awkward defense happens consistently. Bro, it's 2025. Why don't you spend the $80? Because clearly games that are $50 or even less are far better worth my time. Look at the budgets of games like Marathon, $500 million washed down the drain. Look what happened to every other major AAA game that's come out recently. Assassin's Creed Shadows, they didn't talk about sales, they talked about player counts, so clearly we know how that went. Dragon Age: The Veilguard would be another one. Concord, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Don't forget about one of those, by the way. There are so many games that have massive amounts of budgets going around and being complete commercial flops because they are tailoring to no one, and that's the actual issue happening. But the thing is, the biggest problem of all of this is when game companies get far too greedy, and the problem is when a good game is caught in the crossfires of this. Doom: The Dark Ages has been a topic of conversation recently, being discussed as to why the game has an incredibly low player count. If you look at things though from a proper lens, you can see that there are a few factors in between that are causing a lot of these issues. The first thing is when you look at Doom 2016, the peak concurrent player count for that game was 44,000 players directly. When you look at something like Doom Eternal, you have 104,000 concurrent players at its all-time peak. Now granted, in my personal opinion, this is a complete anomaly. anomaly, mostly because this was exactly the time when everybody was again trapped inside with nothing to do. So you might as well go ahead, rip and tear, and play the new Doom game. And I think that's why this game succeeded far more than so many others. That's not to say it's not because it's not a great game, because clearly it honestly was. And at the time of its release, personally, I feel like it should have won Game of the Year over Last of Us 2. But the issue is this was under incredibly strenuous circumstances and shouldn't be, in my opinion, be taken as a direct catalyst of the success of this game. Granted, it was good. I personally don't think it would have hit 100,000 concurrent players if it wasn't for the fact that everybody was trapped inside, though. And I waited for just past the weekend to check this out, because the Dark Ages hit a concurrent all-time peak of 31,470, around 13,000 players less than Doom 2016. And honestly, I feel that this has been a perfect cocktail of complete cannibalization of this game specifically, and what's happening more in the gaming industry. You see, people are trying to point fingers and figure out exactly what happened with Doom the Dark Ages. The first thing, though, is in fact the game does contain the Denuvo DRM, which is a major factor. In fact, according to Gaming on Linux, it turns out that if you try to use a different Proton layer with Denuvo DRM active, you will then go ahead and get locked out of your game for 24 hours. That's right, a game you actually purchased that you legally own the license for, by the way, not the game. That's how these things work. If you try to use a different Proton layer on your Steam Deck in order for the game to properly work, it will literally lock you out of playing your own game that you bought for 24 hours. Forget the fact that you're sitting there and you're getting worse performance because Denuvo has been proven to provide worse performance in game overall. You are now literally locked out as a paying customer of the actual product that you in fact purchased, because they want to add a restriction of DRM on top of it. Even though people want to talk about pirated copies when every other game that doesn't have Denuvo also sells incredibly well. And looking at you, Baldur's Gate 3, it's almost like DRM shouldn't even be a factor, but that's a conversation for another day. So not only are you dealing with DRM that locks you out of your own game that you legally purchased if you try to use a different Proton layer on Linux, and don't come with me the whole like, why did you use Windows? Everybody fucking hates Windows, let's be real, especially Windows 11. But the other big issue, which I want to bring back to what Shuhei Yoshida said, is in fact the pricing of Doom the Dark Ages. 70 USD, and even then, 80 euros specifically. Now, if you wanted to play the game 2 days early, that's $100 USD. We're going to tack on 30 more bucks to play a single player game 2 days earlier, boys. Isn't that a great idea? So we're now already in the $100 video game purchase price point. This isn't a multiplayer game where you get an advantage. This isn't anything along that lane. It's not an MMO. It's not an ARPG where you have a reason to spend more money up front. It's simply because to give you the FOMO. We know you're that much of a simp that you're going to give us more money up front because you want to play just like your favorite streamer does. And I was lucky enough to get a copy from Microsoft, but that doesn't mean they're not going to get cooked and ratioed in this actual video. So not only do we have DRM on Doom the Dark Ages, not only do we have a $100 early access version, because clearly every company wants your single dollar that they possibly can, we now have the complete lack and inability of every game studio and publisher trying to go ahead and implement ray tracing into every game that they want to put out. Not only doing it as an optional sort of thing, like, hey, if you got the hardware, go ahead and do it. We're now considering going ahead and making it a mandatory thing for ray tracing to be used inside of every game. There's no option to turn it off because there's no global illumination. I mean, look at these requirements for the recommended specs of Doom the Dark Ages. We're looking at an RTX 3080 GPU or better and an AMD 6800 GPU or better. Right. For 1440p, 60 FPS, high quality. You know what? Games used to be optimized. Games used to be good. And Doom is an optimized game if you have a ray tracing capable card. The problem is they are literally locking out hundreds, if not thousands, if not more than tens of thousands of players simply because they want to go ahead and add ray tracing directly into the game as a requirement and not as an option. I know people are going to be like, well, bro, just upgrade, bro. You got like a PC. It's been like 7 years since they made the 20 series. Just buy a new one. Yeah, right. Why not just give players the option to go ahead and use that graphical ability rather than making it a requirement? Talking about how things are going to be pushed forward in the gaming industry, how things should look better, is nothing more than a cocksucker Digital Foundry pixel counter honestly does, because every single person that uses that company and that actual YouTube channel is literally one of those people. Let me zoom in 800% on this one corner of the screen. Oh, those 2 pixels are out of place. I'm gonna lose my mind. Yeah, you're that same guy who's like, wow, look at all the reflections. That's great. Takes a screenshot, gets 2 FPS for that screenshot, goes back into settings, turns all that shit back off to actually get a frame rate that's fucking playable in the video game. That's the problem. My GPU and my PC is honestly fantastic. I have a 7900 XT and a 7700X CPU. I can run the game just fine. The problem is I could have had a much better experience overall, had a much better frame rate overall, and not been required to sit there and need upscaling, frame generation, and also the bullshit added on there simply because id wanted to go ahead and use my ray tracing for my reflections. This is exactly why we have so many people going around and realizing, wow, this game is $80, but it really looks almost exactly the same as the other game. It only looks different when I zoom in or when I stop playing the video game. Oh, ray tracing is on? I couldn't really tell. I was too busy, I don't know, playing the video game and not stopping, doing nothing, looking at a puddle for 20 minutes to figure out if it's global illumination or ray tracing reflections. So with all that being said, let's tie it all back together and put a nice little bow on top of it. The statements made by Shuhei basically show that publishers and developers are going to want to maximize the amount of money they make for every single copy sold, regardless of how much quality is provided to each and every single game. Variable pricing is great. That doesn't mean the price needs to go up every single time. It can also go down, as we've seen with E33 and even Elder Scrolls Oblivion. The issue today is that too many game companies feel that they should be able to go ahead and charge more money for their product, even though their product doesn't deserve it. And I 100% will make this statement right now. Video games should not be costing more than $50. Period, point blank, end of story. If your budget is so bloated and your inability to go ahead and budget yourself correctly, and because you want to go ahead and create overbloat in your game is costing you to create and spend more money than you should, that's not my fucking concern as a consumer, because all I've seen ever since these price hikes is worse games overall, more broken games overall, and a worse experience overall. And it's going to continually happen because people are avoiding the real problem that's happening in the gaming industry, especially publishers and developers. Right now, there is far too much choice in the gaming industry for the customer and consumer. And you are not the only kids in town. You're not the only bully on the block, as many would say. Right now, you have so many games coming out at better price points, at better quality, that are literally going around and rocking your socks every single time. A team of 30 in the middle of France going around being like, we're going to make a cool ass game. And they make the game. And now everybody can only talk about that game, as that game sells continually millions of copies day over day, week over week. And you're literally getting pushed aside by a couple of people in a broken down shack in France eating baguettes. And the crazier part is Doom: The Dark Ages isn't even a bad game. It's a pretty good game. I have my own concerns about it specifically, but it's not a bad title, and it should be played by more people. The thing is, though, publishers and developers are making the wrong decisions consistently over and over again, basically putting every single point of friction in front of the customer and consumer simply because they want to go ahead and make 10 more bucks from a sale that they didn't make last time. Rather than just selling to more people, they want to squeeze every stone they can and just try to get more blood from it every single time. And that's what's going to ruin the gaming industry. People like Shuhei, that were literally supposed to be the heroes of the story, have now become the actual villains. And watching other places like id and etc. use fantastic engines, but then totally cripple them by requiring ray tracing, which nobody wants on in the first place because the game is too fucking fast to even look at the reflections. I'm sorry, I'm too busy slaying the demon. I don't care about the reflection in the demon's teeth when I stop playing the game. I gotta go fast. You made the game fast. Who gives a about the reflection? And as long as companies keep doing this, you're going to see less and less people buy more games. You're going to see people go ahead and say, you know what? You're not worth my money. And like Shuhei said, be far more selective with their money specifically. So if you want to charge $80 for a video game, it better be the best game on the planet, because right now no game is worth that asking price directly. If you want to convert people away from pirating and buying your game like you want them to, you need to look at it from the customer and consumer perspective first, and not as a secondary aspect when things are finally falling apart in front of you and you've got no money and you're laying everybody off. The thing is, this cycle continues over and over again. And as long as execs who don't know shit about video games are sitting in those positions, they're going to continually make those same decisions again and again. And it's going to get worse and worse for the industry. There's going to be a point where games are going to be $100. And I can't wait for the day these corpo simp defend $100 video games when they shouldn't be that cost in the first place. It should be $50. It's a damn shame because I truly love this industry and I truly love this hobby. But the problem is, just because I love a hobby doesn't mean it has the actual requirement to open my wallet and goat see it for every red cent. This is going to continually get worse until the industry itself crashes, and I'm literally out here giving a warning every time this happens. And instead of actually people heeding that warning, I get called all sort of names under the book. So you know what? When it finally happens and everything falls apart and I'm going to sit there ruling over a pile of ash, I will literally say, I told you so. But you know what? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Do you think the industry is poised for $80 games? Do you spend $80 on a video game? Or are you going to say, nah, I'll wait for a sale when Denuvo gets removed and it's got better optimization overall? Because clearly, I think that's what's going to be happening a lot more because money's getting tighter and people don't want to spend all that money all at once. But if you want to see more of this kind of content, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy videos, and my hot takes in the gaming industry, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 83,000 subs, and I just want to say thank you guys so very much. If you want to have Discord access or remote streaming live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, every single Saturday is a live stream here, and it's honestly insane because chat uses TTS to bully me for about 4.5 to 5 hours. You're going to love it. I promise. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you next time. Peace!